Hi, everybody. Welcome to the program. I wanted to have this another episode and have a conversation with Tyler, who's been gracious enough to share time with us to understand what his perception is of the finance world, of financial advisors, wealth management, you name it. I would like to kind of dig a little bit and understand, if he's had one, how that experience was, if he doesn't have one, why not, and where is he at, and how does he manage his own money? So with that said, let me welcome Tyler. Tyler, thank you for coming on the show. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so just so that our audience kind of gets an idea, can you give me a little bit of a background of what you do as well as your age range? You don't have to be specific, but at least that way it puts some context.
Sure, yeah. Professionally, my background is in kind of software engineering and design. When I was in my mid-20s, I started Less Annoying CRM, which is a company that I run with my brother. We've been doing it for 13 years now. So I'm, a quote-unquote CEO, but it's a pretty small company, so take that title with a grain of salt. I'm 37 years old now. Yeah.
Got it. Thank you. And so to start off with, can you give me, your first memory of money?
Yeah, I mean, if you mean this like literally very first memory, it's a like piggy bank I got when I was a kid that it had like, you'd put coins in it and they would roll down and separate it from quarters, dimes, nickels, and pennies. And then like once you had enough to fill a roll, you'd get like a roll of quarters out of it. And I wanted so desperately to fill one of those rolls.
Got it. I guess, here in the US, it's interesting. We don't necessarily get education on how to manage money and how to deal with money. Can you give me an idea from your experience? When did you start realizing that, how you manage money, what you're making and what you're spending, your goals and things of that sort? Can you give me an idea of when you came to that realization, or if you did?
Yeah, I did. I had a very concrete moment in my life, which was like right when I got my first job out of college. So prior to that, I grew up in an upper middle class household. Money was never a problem. There was never any stress because of money, but also it wasn't like my parents, I don't think, are very materialistic or whatever. It was never like a status thing either. It was basically, I never thought about money at all. And then I got my first job, and my friend who recruited me to go work at that startup, he sat me down and he was like, do you know what a 401k is? Do you know what an IRA is? And he just had me read some blog posts and kind of explained the basics of like what mutual funds are and that type of thing. And that's when really it started. Since then, I felt like I at least have my head wrapped around it.
Got it. And so the question becomes, did you from that moment then go on and, hire a financial advisor? Have you had one before? What's your experience if you've had one, or what's your perception overall of that world?
Yeah, I've never hired one. My closest interaction is that my wife had one that she kind of like inherited from her father, basically. She never picked this financial advisor, but everyone in the family uses it. I never did. The friend who kind of educated me on this stuff is very much in the like index funds, you can't beat the market, lower your expenses mindset. So I've considered before like a fee only, just like a few hours of advice type of thing, but I'm not really of the mindset that having kind of like a pay 1% of your net worth to a person every year forever, that doesn't fit with my approach to this.
So naturally, you're going into the world of fees. I want to kind of understand and unpack this a little bit. I may come across biased, so fair warning. I was in the advisor world for 2 decades. So please take that with a grain of salt. I'm not trying to push you into one or the other, but I want to just understand some of the thought process, right? There's obviously fee only, which you already mentioned, which is advisors that charge, by quote unquote project or by hours. This is what you need help with, and they can kind of guide you. And then there's, of course, what you mentioned, the 1%, which is if you have a certain amount of money, the advisors can manage and then charge you a percent. Typically on average is about 1%. It depends a lot on complexity and whatnot. You mentioned that's not, you don't feel comfortable with that route. Can you give me a little bit of your thought process there? What makes you, averse from that world?
Yeah. So I fully appreciate that, like, financial advisors know stuff I don't and can provide valuable advice in certain realms. But I think, like, a lot of financial advisors, and especially a lot of customers of financial advisors, think of it as a service to try to beat the market, like to pick stocks or whatever. And every savvy financial advisor would say that's not what they do, I think. But a lot of people think that's what it is. And, like, I'm very much of the opinion you can't, like, if you could pick stocks better than anyone else, you'd be Warren Buffett, and you're not Warren Buffett. So, like, don't sell me on that, basically. The stuff I could use help with is, you know, like, I don't have kids, but if I did, like, what can I do to set them up? Or, you know, family estate planning, like stuff like that I don't know how to do. But that just feels like a project, not like an ongoing service. You know, when you do the math on what 1% per year comes out to over the course of 40 years of my life, like, I can't imagine anyone providing a level of value that would justify that amount of money.
Got it. Understood. I think as an industry, we've done a pretty bad job at communicating the value that advisors bring to the table besides just wealth management, right? Trying to beat the market and all of that. Yes, I know advisors are out there who have that mindset, but there's also plenty of advisors now. I come from that world where we did a whole holistic financial plan for you, where we kind of look at every dollar you're investing and how that could impact your taxes, not just today, but also maybe in retirement. How are you going to be positioned? Because one of the things that happens is that folks, for example, just go ahead and invest in 401ks. Great, you're saving on taxes today and you're getting that growth without paying taxes. But when you retire, if that's all you have, you've now all of a sudden put yourself in a higher tax bracket, because that's the money you're going to have to take to pay for yourself, right? And we don't do a good job of communicating these nuances. You mentioned estate planning as well, right? That's an important factor of what happens to your money. So I guess tell me about, have you heard anything around behavioral coaching? Because that's another element that financial advisors, really provide value on. Have you heard that term even?
I haven't heard the term. I can guess as to what it means, but maybe the closest thing. So I listened to one podcast about this, which is I Will Teach You to Be Rich, which I honestly don't listen to it for financial advice. For whatever weird reason, I find it very entertaining. So I listen to it more because I think it's fun to listen to than, like, they keep going over the same concepts that I already know. But I'm guessing, I don't know if you're familiar with that podcast. I'm guessing that is kind of more like the behavioral side of things.
I've not heard the podcast myself. I've heard of it, but perhaps I'll go and take some time and listen to it. I think it's by Ramit Sethi, right?
Yeah. And it's all couples. It's couples who are having some sort of conflict with money. It's like half therapy, half financial planning, basically.
Yeah. So the behavioral coaching element comes in is for a lot of folks, like right now, I believe what the market is doing, it's freaking folks out. Now, if you've had a proper financial plan done and you know that your money you're not going to need for another, let's say 4, 5, 10 plus years, that's where the financial advisor can come in and kind of coach you and say, listen, let's not make, rash decisions of pulling your money because the market's just gone down. You don't need this for another 10 years or whatever the number may be. And listen, you will be okay. And that I think has a huge value, because as you pull money out, you've basically locked in the losses if that's when you pulled it out, right? And then to come back to your normal levels is very, very challenging. So that's where behavioral coaching comes in. Now, naturally, you're talking about, you've potentially thought about project-based financial advisors, right? What would you value and what would make you, I guess, say, yeah, let me go and look for somebody to help you with in the different areas you talked about, like the estate planning, for example?
Yeah. So I don't currently have anything like estate planning. The thing that I would value where I am in life right now is like, I like this stuff. You can probably tell, not that I'm an expert, but I think I know more than the average person. I think I know enough to put my plan together. I have my spreadsheets and all that stuff. I think I probably would want to hire basically someone to just audit the work I've done, just to say, is the way I'm thinking about the amount of money I need for retirement, is it correct? Am I thinking about taxes correctly? I don't need someone to put a plan together, but I actually feel pretty confident in it. As my wife and I have been merging our finances a little more, I've never been emotional about money. So like what you're saying about pulling out of the stock market makes total sense. That's not a problem I have. Like, stock market's down, I don't care. I don't need this money. It's easy to be logical for me. My wife's more emotional, and not generally, but like about money. Having an expert come in and say, you won't be broke when you retire or by the time you die, would give her quite a bit of peace of mind, I think.
Ultimately, that's what financial advisors are there for, is to provide that, hey, you'll be okay, basically, right? Or you need to save more, for example.
Right, yeah. The flip side of that, though, is she had this financial advisor who she recently left. When we did the math, and I was like, you realize this guy is taking, over the course of your life, you're going to be $1 million poorer than you would have been without this. She was like, well, this is not worth $1 million to me, you know? So there is a price we would pay, but it's not 1% of our net worth per year.
Yeah, and I think the industry is coming to a realization about different, and that's why we have so many different fee models now, right? I'm out of it, so for me it's just interesting. I don't have a dog in the fight per se. I'm just kind of curious to see how this world is evolving about fees, specifically with financial advisors. But I keep coming back to, the advisors are not doing a good enough job of showing where they can add value to you and your life. Classic example, I'd love to get your thoughts on this, is, tax rules keep changing. Seems like Congress is, the job is just to change tax rules every year. And advisors typically are aware of what's happening, and then they can help you communicate with you like, hey, this may affect you one way or the other, for example. What's your thoughts on that sort of value?
I think there's definitely a market for it. I don't think so. I'm a weirdo in this regard. I am not like rich, but I am comfortable, and I have no insecurity about money. And I take pride in paying taxes, and I'm not trying to minimize that. There's a limit, of course. You might say, well, write a bigger check to the government, right? Like, I don't want to pay more taxes than I need to, but I'm also not... many times I've decided in my life, I'd rather simplify things and pay more taxes. So for example, my business, I am paid as a W-2 employee, even though I would pay lower taxes if I used any number of shenanigans or paid myself like profit as a shareholder. There's a lot of ways I could pay lower taxes, and I decided, you know what, W-2 life is for me. It's a lot easier to file taxes. If I have to pay 5 or 10% more, I don't care. So I'm not the customer for that, but I think there are a lot of customers for that.
Got it. Well, thank you very much. I know we've gone over a couple more minutes, but thank you, Tyler, for your thoughts and for your candid conversation here.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. This is fun conversation.
Thank you.